Hey guys, my name's Nova, this is Film Express, and today we're going to be talking about the new LEE CRONIN entry into the Evil Dead franchise, Evil Dead Rise. I didn't know what to expect when it came to Evil Dead Rise. There was a lot of hype kind of bubbling up online and a very, very high Rotten Tomatoes rating, as you guys know. But, I had to see it for myself because I've been fooled many times by the hype before. In preparation to this, I actually went and watched some of LEE CRONIN's other work, and I watched a couple of his short films. This guy is a very, very good director. I cannot even mince any words or sugarcoat it. He is incredibly great at shooting a scene, at his compositions, at his camera movements, at what he chooses to focus on, and he can bring a script to life with his directing 100%. My problem with the 3 or 4 projects I've seen of his have always been when it comes down to the writing. And I feel like that's something I always end up preaching about when it comes to a film that I don't like too much or I find flaws in. It always comes back down to the writing. Evil Dead Rise is an Evil Dead film that takes itself seriously. And you know what? A lot of OG fans of the original series are not going to be fully into that. Now, for me, for somebody who doesn't subscribe to Sam Raimi's sense of humor or his wit or the campy ways he shoots and produces things, this felt like an incredibly refreshing entry into the series. There's a lot going for this movie. There was so many incredible directorial moments, and there was a couple of cool sequences that were almost unlike anything I've seen in a very long time when it comes to horror films. But with those strengths, there comes some flaws. I think the script for me is sitting in a very middle spot where I appreciate a lot of the nods, the homages, the references to the original series, and the way they kind of manage to work with the ingredients of what make an Evil Dead film an Evil Dead film. But I really did not like a lot of the plot armor, a lot of the character decisions. There were some dumb character decisions, and ultimately I feel like this apartment setting for an Evil Dead film really limited the film and held it back from being an incredible movie. Guys, in general, I'm trying to be more forgiving on the horror genre just because I've given them a lot of flack and I've given a lot of great horror films a very hard time. They're always going to fall victim to these tropes and these cliches and these formulas that they have a really hard time breaking free from. When it comes to this film, I tried really hard as well to just be super forgiving and just to kind of let the experience win me over. But when it came down to these characters and the family drama and a lot of these stupid character decisions or the plot armor, I kept getting taken out of my incredible immersion that the film was trying to set up for me. You know what? Kudos to this film for having some cool gore, some cool injuries, some cool violence, some unique visceral moments. For as many of those strong, incredible moments as there were just as many that were followed by an incredibly stupid plot armor moment where characters didn't get hurt as bad as they could have or should have just because the plot wanted them to ultimately. Maybe this is more of a reflection of me, and maybe I'm just crazy for wanting them to take those injuries and that gore further, but it's an Evil Dead film. Like, that's really what I was expecting from this type of movie. Instead, they have moments where one of the villains has one of the characters really under a knife, and instead of stabbing them in a lethal spot, they'll stab them in the bicep or in the shoulder, just so that they can still exist within the plot, or just so that they don't get killed off too easily. There were so many of those moments. I ended up counting 5, 6, maybe 7 of those moments. It starts to hit me that maybe the threat and the fear element isn't as bad as the film is trying to make it out to be. Still, with that criticism being said, and with all these flaws that I'm kind of pointing out, I still found this to be surprisingly decent. I think what the film does really well is that it incorporates some really interesting set pieces and sequences where it's attempting to do something new, not just for the franchise, but for horror films in general, and try to, elevate your heart rate, try to get you scared, try to get you feeling uneasy. And the film managed to do that a few times. Another thing that I find really commendable here is that the film manages to find that perfect balance, at least for me, where they'll still have that kind of like dark humor, campy, self-referential Evil Dead ingredients. They also attempt, kind of like the 2013 Evil Dead remake, to make things more serious and more intense and more scary and less campy. That's kind of exactly what I wanted. It wasn't that extremely low budget kind of tongue-in-cheek Evil Dead. It was a demon possession story set in an apartment where you kind of just didn't know what to expect, and to me that made for a refreshing enough experience. I didn't like this as much as like something like Barbarian or something like Pearl from last year, but I've seen way worse when it comes to horror films, let's just say that. Now, the main attraction here is the villain. It's Alyssa Sutherland's performance as the demon Ellie. This performance is worthy of all the hype. In every single way, this is one of the creepiest, most interesting, most incredible horror performances I've seen in a very, very long time. Alyssa Sutherland was putting on a masterclass of horror performance, and it almost seemed like she was in a league above everyone else. Evil Dead Rise has a lot of cool sequences, but the writing kind of suffers, and you're going to be facing a lot of dumb character decisions, moments that make you kind of look at the screen and kind of shake your head, and you wouldn't think that any character in that position would do it. The characters in Evil Dead Rise kind of do it. It almost makes a case for having characters that are more stupid than the characters in something like Prometheus, and everyone knows to this day how stupid those characters are. So that says a lot. Evil Dead Rise is more of a showcase for Lee Cronin as a director, and to be honest, as a director, he did a fantastic job. And I genuinely think if Lee Cronin ends up working with some other writers in the future, he's gonna be one of the bigger directors working in Hollywood if he manages to just direct somebody else's script. One last point, it feels odd almost calling this an Evil Dead film because it's set in an apartment, and I feel like maybe that's just me, because I've never watched the Ash versus the Evil Dead series, but to me, Evil Dead almost is always associated with a cabin in the woods type vibe. As far as a demon possession tale goes, and as far as the Evil Dead series goes, funny enough, Evil Dead Rise is the one I enjoyed the most, just because it takes itself more seriously, just because it tries to be intense, and because there was none of that Sam Raimi humor that I've just grown to kind of dislike. I know that might be a hot take because Evil Dead is a beloved series, but I've just never really clicked with that series. But that's just me. If you guys like it, that's all good. Now that's my review of Evil Dead Rise, guys. If I have to give this a star rating or a rating out of 10, I'd give this a 2.5 stars out of 5. This is like a 5 out of 10, 5.5 out of 10 maybe. Like, it just passes. It does a good enough job. It could have been way better, let's just be real. But as a director, Lee Cronin is proving to be a talent to watch, and Alyssa Sutherland gives a bone-chilling performance as the demon Ellie. So guys, my name is Nova, this is Film Express. Please like, please dislike, please share some comments if you guys have seen Evil Dead. What did you guys think of this movie? Is this the best or the worst in the series, or is it somewhere in the middle? Let's talk about it. Until my next review, guys, it was an absolute pleasure talking about Evil Dead Rise. Hit that notification bell if you haven't already, and I'll catch you on the next one. See ya.